I've been banned from pretty much every dating app known to man.
Banned?
They kick you off.
For what?
They don't give you reasons.
Hi guys, today I want to talk about the most disturbing show on television. This is The Rehearsal Season 2. Now, for those of you who haven't seen the show, I want this video to serve as an introduction to the show, and if at any point all of this sounds like something that interests you, click off my video and go watch it. And for those of you who have seen the show, I want this to work as sort of a retrospective of Nathan Fielder's work up until this point, as well as a mid-season review. So either way, if you have seen the show, if you haven't seen the show, you should be able to get some stuff out of it. I'm going to try to do a good job of walking you through the episodes, but let's just get into my thoughts on Nathan Fielder in general. So Nathan For You is one of the funniest shows I think I've ever seen, and if you have seen the show, you know it starts to take a more conceptual, emotional kind of turn towards its end. But Nathan For You, for those of you who don't know, is a reality show / parody show of reality television where Nathan Fielder shows up to struggling businesses and gives them absurd ideas in an attempt to help their business. So for the audience at home, it's clearly a prank show to see what he can get away with. For those struggling businesses that sign up for this, they think he's genuinely a guru that is going to help them. So for example, the first episode features him going to a frozen yogurt shop and suggesting that they sell a poo flavored frozen yogurt. And it only escalates into more conceptual and outlandish ideas from there. But there was this consistent through line throughout Nathan Fielder's first show, Nathan For You, where you get a sense that it's scratching for something deeper. It becomes a character study of Nathan Fielder himself, how uncomfortable he is with people, how off-putting he is.
I love you.
Again.
I love you.
How much kind of like bullying he attracts just by his off-putting, uncanny vibe and the way he kind of handles social situations.
You know what you are? You remind me of the Wizard of Loneliness, because you're your own self, your own wizard. Look at you in a pink shirt and everything else. You have no friends. That's why you're the Wizard of Loneliness.
And while this sounds like a reach when you're first watching Nathan For You, I actually don't think it is, because his next show, The Rehearsal, which we will be discussing in depth today, came out, and that was all about practicing social situations, social anxiety, the idea of having full control over not only what you say, but what other people say, whether manipulating a conversation, whether predicting every single outcome can give you peace of mind, or whether it creates something that feels inauthentic. Nathan Fielder is obsessed with reality TV. He is obsessed with the line between what is real and what is fake. And as you start to watch all his shows, it feels like his general thesis is like, what's the point of caring whether reality TV, whether TV in general is fake or real, when we are all so fake to each other? It feels like part of what Nathan Fielder is trying to say is that he is trying to be honest in the way he handles himself with people in his social interactions, and it clearly rubs people the wrong way because he's not being fake himself. And his work is obsessed with the line between fake and real. You know, his collaborator, Benny Safdie, who he worked on with in The Curse, which is his next show after The Rehearsal, talks about the fact that he as a filmmaker, Benny Safdie and the Safdie brothers, are obsessed with making fake stuff feel real, whereas Nathan Fielder is obsessed with making real stuff feel fake. And I feel like this becomes really, really channeled in The Rehearsal. It's a show that starts out initially with almost his approach to businesses, but for people. You know, the first episode is him trying to help someone admit to a lie to his social circle, to his friendship group. And even by the end of that episode, it becomes more a mirror held up to Nathan about his own need for control in social situations and his desire to be able to predict and handle uncomfortable social situations, both the discomfort he finds in them and the discomfort he causes in others. Throughout The Rehearsal Season 1, it goes from a show that feels like every episode is going to be helping someone kind of handle an uncomfortable situation to something far more conceptual and disturbing about the impact it can have to want to rehearse social situations, the impact reality reality TV can have on child stars. The whole idea, whether it is cruel to want to know the outcome of a conversation and how sort of social discomfort spreads and infects other people and causes uncomfortable behavior. By the end of the Rehearsal season 1, you are presented with something that is simultaneously beautiful to behold and also deeply, deeply uncomfortable and disturbing. And even as an audience member, as you're seeing the toll it takes on child actors and just genuinely people that are just clearly a bit mentally unwell, you kind of have to wrestle with your own participation in this show. Then you're presented with The Curse, Nathan Fielder's next show, and this is a scripted show starring him, Benny Safdie, and Emma Stone, in my opinion, a career best performance from her. And this is a show that really laser focuses on how uncomfortable Nathan Fielder is as a character. Yes, he's technically playing a character, Asher, but there are so many quirks and idiosyncrasies with Nathan Fielder's character in The Curse that feel like a direct kind of evolution of who he was in The Rehearsal and in Nathan For You, where you can't help but notice the patterns here. There are themes of emasculation, small penis jokes, Nathan Fielder constantly being the butt of the joke and making people uncomfortable and not handling social situations. And without giving away too much, the end of The Curse feels like this existential, simultaneously literal and metaphorical, like explosion of the feeling of not feeling comfortable in your skin, not feeling comfortable around other people, not understanding social dynamics and what it would be like to be free of all that. It's an incredible series if you can handle it. And now we are presented with The Rehearsal season 2, which feels like yet again just a combination of every single one of Nathan Fielder's projects just turned up to 11. The amount of lore it takes to really experience this show on its full level is quite fascinating, because simultaneously I feel like I could show this show to plenty of people from season 2 and they would get it, they would enjoy it. But there's also this deep, rich lore built off Nathan Fielder and his genuine curiosity and almost obsession with uncomfortable social dynamics that has come across in every single series he's done up until this point. So season 2 of The Rehearsal takes that initial conceit of The Rehearsal season 1, this idea that he has resources from HBO, a ridiculous budget, basically to help people practice uncomfortable social situations. But instead of that approach with season 1, where it was initially meant to be general day-to-day situations and then it turned into rehearsing a family life without having a family yourself, season 2 is obsessed with aviation, which feels like a real wild kind of left turn for Nathan Fielder. It feels very niche and very nerdy, but quickly as you turn on season 2, you realize that yes, it is simultaneously about aviation, but more so it's about the ability to be assertive, the ability to effectively communicate, how communication needs to be handled between two people. As someone who is obsessed with reality TV myself and obsessed with kind of talking and how conversations are handled, I really do think what Nathan Fielder is exploring here, people's discomfort with being assertive, saying what they believe in, having massive, massive impacts, is really fascinating. So season 2 opens, and the general conceit of episode 1 and seemingly throughout this season is Nathan Fielder's assessment that a lot of plane crashes could be avoided if people were more comfortable speaking up for basically what they believed. The ability to be confident in themselves and the opinions.
GPS has us to the right, though.
We've captured the localizer. Everything is fine. Continue the approach.
Maybe we should do a go-around and troubleshoot the nav discrepancy. You probably should turn left to get on course.
I can't turn left. We're on course.
Nathan Fielder realizes this by noticing a pattern in a bunch of plane crashes. He realizes that there is a common situation where the pilot makes up his mind or her mind on a course of action, and the co-pilot, who is meant to have equal say, is meant to be as important in the decision making, is either too scared to speak up themselves or they are shut down by the pilot.
GPS has us to the right, though.
We've captured the localizer. Everything is fine. Continue the approach.
Maybe we should do a go-around and troubleshoot the nav discrepancy. You probably should turn left to get on course.
I can't turn left. We're on course.
Nathan Fielder realizes that this uncomfortable social dynamic that probably goes unnoticed in every single flight ever has detrimental and devastating impacts when these co-pilots are offering better courses of action and being completely ignored due to previously set up social dynamics and kind of this idea of not wanting to commit a social faux pas despite the fact that their lives are on the line. The season opens with this equally horrific and hysterical montage of a recreation of all these flights going wrong and Nathan Fielder almost operating as this godlike presence watching over them going wrong. And very quickly, even though this feels like a niche topic, it also feels incredibly important. You're watching Nathan Fielder go through this research, and even though it simultaneously sounds absurd that he's going to apply this ridiculous HBO show he's built to this situation, it almost feels like he's onto something profound and powerful. And simultaneously, he meets with someone who is on the government board, I believe, or someone who is actually involved in the rules and regulations around aviation safety, who says that creating rehearsal-like situations would actually be a way to deal with this social discomfort that pilots and co-pilots find themselves in. And the first episode, while it explores and focuses on this shortcoming of aviation, it also deals with very sticky character drama in a very interesting way. Midway through the episode, we meet a pilot called Moody. Very quickly, Nathan Fielder gets interested in what Moody's home life is like, whether there's something that he can kind of explore that will be relevant to this kind of crisis he's found with the pilot and aviation industry. And very quickly, he finds out that Moody is worried about his girlfriend being unfaithful, worried about his girlfriend cheating while they're long distance, but is too scared to say something. And Nathan Fielder has a light bulb moment where he goes, wow, if I can teach him to be more assertive with his girlfriend, maybe that means in a situation that's life or death in piloting, he will also have the ability to be more assertive. But Nathan Fielder takes this one step further and creates this situation where they are now in a flight simulator, Moody and his girlfriend, and he gets Moody to actually confront his girlfriend and take action of a flight while doing it. And it's interesting because yes, it sounds absurd and comical and ridiculous, and it's very, very funny. There's this whole dialogue around the fact that Moody's girlfriend is accepting gifts that are clear flirts from her customers at Starbucks and is in complete denial about this and is going full gaslight, gatekeep, girl boss mode with Moody. Nathan Fielder knows this. Nathan Fielder sees this, but he lets it play out and creates this situation where Moody is actually, for lack of a better term, getting his balls back. He's getting a sense of authority and being like, hey, I will not stand for this. I don't really like it, while simultaneously creating a sort of Pavlovian response with the plane. And yes, is this going to pay off in a way where Moody is actually on a flight that's going to go downhill? Most likely not, but there's something really interesting going on here. And again, it's Nathan Fielder leaning into uncomfortable social dynamics and situations that I think are actually important. I think these things do add up, and I think a lot of our society doesn't talk about how, these little social slights can have massive ramifications. What you tolerate at home leads to what you tolerate from co-workers and your bosses, and what you tolerate from your co-workers and bosses does actually translate to how you see yourself at home. These things aren't that easy to compartmentalize, and I think Nathan Fielder is very interested in the fact that pilots specifically are basically forced to compartmentalize how they interact in the cockpit and how they interact at home. Later in the show, Nathan Fielder comes across basically a whole entire mental health epidemic and crisis that is going on in the aviation industry. The fact that pilots are genuinely scared to talk about their mental health, to go see a therapist, to talk about their concerns, because if they do, it gets back to the FAA, it gets back to kind of the governing body, and they might actually lose their job. And on one end, you think that's an insanely cruel situation to be in, an incredibly unhealthy situation to be in. But at the same time, you get the concern. If a pilot is going to a therapist talking about suicidal ideation, for example, that probably isn't someone you want flying your plane. But like, what do you do in that situation? And it's such an uncomfortable and existential idea. Even the fact that knowing that a bunch of flights are handled by a duo that doesn't really communicate well, doesn't trust one another to communicate well and get each other out of a terrible situation that can result in a plane actually crashing, is kind of showing the butterfly effect that being uncomfortable and not being able to handle social situations can lead to. And Nathan Fielder, again, is obsessed with this sort of stuff. So episode 1 has some incredible highlights. One of the moments I want to talk about is when Nathan Fielder wants to get in touch with someone who works at the airport, I believe, or works for a aviation company. And the assistant says that, like, oh, I don't have that number. And Nathan Fielder goes, really? You don't have your boss's number? And it's done in kind of a perfect manner, in my opinion. It's a really interesting moment because Nathan Fielder revels in how uncomfortable he makes people. But this is a moment where I actually feel like he handles this better than most. If you were to do that most of the time, you would sound passive aggressive and condescending, kind of snarky. You know, if I did that with someone who clearly didn't want to give me a phone number, they would probably think I'm being aggressive and curt. But Nathan Fielder says it in a way that sounds genuinely curious and almost puts the onus back on them to really sit with what they say. And he does this a lot throughout the first season. And it's just an interesting thing to pay attention to.
It has to go through like the comms team, and then it would be run through the airport.
Do you have that number, or
No.
you don't have your boss's phone number?
No.
Whoa. So you guys aren't very close, I guess, then.
Not particularly.
Okay.
Despite how much Nathan Fielder revels in this exaggerated version of himself being really uncomfortable, he also knows how to get what he wants a lot of the time. I think he's really, really good at it in a way where he simultaneously is uncomfortable, but also creates a comfort in that discomfort. I think the fact that people see Nathan Fielder, I think the fact that he plays the role of someone who doesn't understand social cues so well, it almost disarms people. It makes them go like, oh, he just doesn't get it. He's not being mean. He's just a bit funny. He's just a bit of an oddball. And I think what makes Nathan Fielder's work more sinister is the fact that even though he plays the part of someone who doesn't understand social situations very well, I think he does in a weird way, you know, like he has a very successful HBO show. He got Paramount to give him a show that got a straight 40% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes, but he's like, he's really good at getting what he wants. Look at the insane production value in this season. Look at how he handles himself on the Jimmy Kimmel or Jimmy Fallon show, whichever one it was. He is really, like, he knows how to turn on the charm if he has to, but I think he enjoys reveling in this anxious, uncomfortable character to see what it gets out of people. And I think that almost makes his work more uncomfortable. It's the fact that he can probably turn on the charm. He knows how to behave, but he chooses not to. And this was talked about in a Curse interview where he talks about the fact everyone talks about how uncomfortable the Curse is as a show was, and he finds that strange because he talks about the fact that, in real life we don't cut away when conversations are awkward. He talks about the fact that pretty much every conversation on a certain level is uncomfortable. You don't get to cut away from conversations in real life. They just kind of awkwardly end.
But when I hear like the word like, oh, it's cringy, and someone's like, I can't handle it, I wonder how that person can go through life at all. Because every interaction is horrendous, almost all. In some way, like, nothing ends with a cut when you're in real life. Like, you sometimes, there's nothing else to say, and everyone has subtext of things they're not saying to each other, and that feels like normal. So it's interesting that people have like a hard time with it, but also it's like we weren't trying to do that. We were just basically, we love it when characters are in scenes and they're not saying what they're actually feeling and maybe communicating in some other way.
And I think this is very true and not something many people speak about. I don't know about you guys, but like, I've been very in my head lately, and once you start noticing these patterns of like, why would this person say that? Is that the right thing to say? Like, you can get really obsessed. And I think Nathan Fielder is kind of obsessed with tackling how fake our general interactions are, and he presents himself in a way that's just very honest and makes you sit with like your own bullshit, your own niceties. Like it forces you to be like, oh, why did I say that? Why did I say that weird thing? Why did I say, yeah, I'll see you later, when I clearly have no intention of seeing this person? Why did I say, yeah, maybe we can catch up that time, when I have no intention on doing that? Like, why did I end the conversation that way? I think Nathan Fielder exposes something that a lot of us just don't talk about consistently. And I think that's what I'm really enjoying about the Rehearsal season 2. So even the way he questions Moody and questions his girlfriend and goes, well, why would you think that if there's nothing to worry about? Or why would you accept those gifts? They're clearly flirty. He does it in a way that really puts the onus back onto them. And then we escalate the social discomfort because we get to episode 2. Just a brief intermission, guys. If you're enjoying this video, please consider getting a membership to this channel. I talk about every single show and movie I watched in a monthly or fortnightly podcast. For general tier members, you get to vote for things I cover for weekly videos for members only. And for top tier members, you get to vote on a video that will become a main channel video, as well as all the other things I mentioned. So it really helps out the channel. Please consider getting one. And back to the video. And we find out that apparently Nathan Fielder used to work. He's had a very wild career, let's say. We find out in episode 2 that Nathan Fielder has worked as essentially not like the Simon Cowell level of judge on Canadian Idol, but kind of the people before that. So apparently before those like panels that we see on TV for American Idol, X Factor, yada, 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 they actually do auditions with like randoms, like Nathan Fielder before he was famous. And then they decide whether they're worthy of being on the auditions that make it onto TV. So we get a bunch of lore about Nathan Fielder, about the fact that he used to be one of these people that selects talent in Canadian Idol. And you're sort of like, where is this going? And then it dawns on you very quickly that he's going to get pilots to do this job, because apparently, and of course you can understand this, it's a brutal fucking job. You have people coming in with their hopes and dreams to be a star on the line, and you basically have to tell them either they are making it, or more importantly for this show, you have to tell them that actually they're not that good and their dreams aren't coming true today. And you have to sit in that moment of watching people have their heart broken and their dreams shattered. So Nathan Fielder's contention here is clearly like, oh, we're going to get a bunch of pilots and to train them to be more assertive and stand up for themselves and be able to communicate even when uncomfortable. We're going to get them to just sit in a room and basically reject people unless they really think they actually have star potential. We're going to get them to sit there and reject people all day and just sit in that discomfort. And it makes for some of the most uncomfortable, brutal television. But this is, at the end of the day, this is how these shows operate. And again, it leans into that whole thing of like, what's fake, what's real, does it really matter? You know, like at the end of the day, like Nathan Fielder actually tells a bunch of the contestants like, hey, this isn't a normal singing competition. This is a competition for singing, and it will result in you being on TV if you are the winner, if we deem you the winner. And technically he does fulfill on that promise, but no, there's no actual like Canadian Idol sort of show coming from this. But at the end of the day, doesn't matter if these people go into this show and they're shortlisted and they feel like they've achieved something. Is that worth something? You know, if they are now on this show that was clearly a parody, is it still a fulfilling moment for them? Especially where this episode goes. So throughout the episode, you have to watch this montage of just pilots having to sit in this discomfort. And then we get a beautiful character arc and this really strange character arc where Nathan Fielder sees that someone is consistently crushing it. They're getting really positive scores because he set up a box outside of the room where after these singing auditions happen, the singers can rate kind of basically the vibe of the judge, you know, and there is a woman that even though she is rejecting a bunch of people, she's getting like an average of 9 and above out of 10. So Nathan looks at this and goes, I make people uncomfortable. I really want to learn, you know, how she can do this. So then he steps back into being a judge, talks about the fact that when he was a judge, he used to make people uncomfortable and tries to emulate her style. And it's horrific. It's sad. It's uncomfortable. And it just isn't right because it feels fake and it feels performative.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Sophia.
Thank you.
But truthfully, a lot of these interactions from the woman were probably fake as well. But there's just some people have that ability and some people don't. And I think, weirdly enough, I think Nathan Fielder probably does have it in him in real life, but who fucking knows at this point, you know? Like, is this just a character he's playing and does it even matter? You know, regardless, you have to sit in this tension. He has a conversation with someone as to why he got a low score, which is a really interesting moment. And then we get to the end of the episode where finally this girl who clearly has her heart set on winning this competition auditions, and Nathan Fielder goes full tilt you know, and decides that no, even though I could just give her the go ahead, I'm going to sit in the difficulty of actually being like, hey, you're just not what we're looking for. And this leads to a moment that is really quite beautiful.
So I need to tell you that I can't put you through the next round because you're not quite at the level we're looking for. But can I tell you why I think you're going to succeed? There are millions of people in this country that are your age that want to be singers. But you actually got out of bed this morning. You drove here, you waited in line, knowing that there was a chance that you might fail. The number one thing that shows me that someone's going to succeed is if they're willing to take that risk and to give it a shot, even though it might not go their way. And all the other singers that are still in bed right now, they don't. How do you feel right now?
Well, a little disappointed.
Lots of life ahead of you, okay?
Okay.
So just remember that. Don't give up, okay?
Thank you.
Okay.
And I've seen so much speculation online as to whether his speech here, where he's telling this girl, like, hey, you've done something most people can't do your age. You've got up, you've come to this audition, you've given it a great go. You're just not what we're looking for. And there's a few beautiful things about this scene. One, she does end up being on TV. She is kind of the reigning champion. She does technically win this show. She is the centerpiece of this show. So in theory, she did actually win the hypothetical show Nathan Fielder was pitching to her. But also, like, I think his words here were genuinely beautiful. And yes, she only gave him a 6. I know part of the teaser of the end of this episode is whether she rated him a 6 or a 9. I thought you were meant to take it as this dark moment or this tragic moment where even though she clearly rated him a 6, he changed it to a 9. And it's this sad but beautiful moment where you're watching Nathan Fielder do his darndest to give an authentic kind of nice delivery of like harsh news to this girl and not crush her spirit. And he's not quite nailing it. It still feels uncomfortable, but it is earnest. It is him doing his best. And even if all of this was fake, even if it was like, even if this isn't Nathan Fielder, because I've seen so much speculation online as to whether this was him acting or being genuine. I think the thing is, and I think what all his shows are about is, does it really matter? You know, if this was fake, if he didn't genuinely mean it, but he was doing his best because it's the polite thing to do, and at the end of the day, she goes home a bit happier and it lands better for her, does it really matter whether he believed her or not? Does it cheapen the moment? And I'm not saying there's a right or a wrong answer here. I'm asking you at home, like, this moment works. It's this really like beautiful moment where Nathan Fielder is doing his best to basically be like a normal fucking dude and not crush this girl. And at the same time, she's having a moment where all her dreams are like kind of crashing down. And does do his words land as simple lip service, or are they actually going to register? And if they don't register, is it because it wasn't delivered by someone like that woman who's just a lot better at it? Or is it just not landing because it's not what she wants to hear? These are all questions that the show wants you to revel in. At the same time, though, in the same episode, we have this absolutely hysterical arc when Nathan Fielder is talking about the fact that during the Curse airing, so that was that show with Emma Stone, basically he realized that one of his episodes of Nathan For You was taken down. Funnily enough, not to be like, oh, I knew that before it was famous, but I remember watching Nathan For You on Paramount Plus, and I was like, where's that episode with Summit Ice? Where's that episode with the fat people that get balloons so they can ride horses? Where is that? And turns out it was taken down by Paramount Plus because they don't like the fact that in that episode, it talks about Holocaust awareness, and the German branch of Paramount basically decided to take the episode down. And Nathan Fielder, as a Jewish man, is very insulted by this. He took pride in this company he made in Nathan For You that was trying to raise Holocaust awareness, hurts his feelings, but because they were airing The Curse, and he also hints at the idea that The Curse Season 2 might be coming, please, by the way, I want The Curse Season 2. But regardless, he talks about the fact that at the time, he was scared to bring this up with Paramount, even though in his eyes, this was a clear, objective, moral failing from Paramount Plus. So he then kind of creates this elaborate set piece where he rehearses kind of talking to Paramount, and he frames them as Nazis. It's a hysterical and simultaneously triumphant and moving section. It's hysterical, it's funny, and it shows the level of budget and resources and belief HBO have in Nathan Fielder to just let this unhinged creativity thrive. It's a great, great moment. But then we get to episode 3, and this is kind of the reason I wanted to make this video today, because episode 3, one of the most interesting episodes of TV I've seen in a long time. And that was off the back of episode 2, which was also something that has been keeping me up at night and constantly had me thinking. We get to episode 3, all right? And episode 3 is basically a redo of the Sully biopic movie. So sticking with the aviation theme that has been set up throughout this season, Nathan Fielder now wants to kind of like look into that famous Captain Sully landing of a plane in the Hudson River. If you don't know about this, quickly search it up. But basically some birds flew into a plane jet engine, and then this hero pilot managed to land it in the Hudson River, saving everyone's lives. And Nathan Fielder wants to analyze and break down what made this flight successful, whether it was something to do with communication, like what was the magic here that has been failing all these pilots in other catastrophic flights. But before we get to this insane Sully biopic, there's actually something more interesting I want to talk about. Actually, not more interesting, let's say equally as interesting. The episode opens up with what feels like a random detour where Nathan Fielder finds this couple that has clones of their dogs. Now, first off, I did not know you could clone dogs. I've checked this. Yeah, you can clone dogs. But basically, they had a dog that they absolutely adored, and they cloned that dog 3 times, which, by the way, like 50 to 80,000 USD a pop. But they've cloned their dogs. But their disappointment here is that even though they've cloned the dogs and the dogs look exactly the same, they're not really a clone of their dog because it doesn't have the same vibe. It doesn't have the same personality. The reason they cloned their dog is because they wanted the exact same dog, the exact same vibe, the exact same personality. So, on one end, this completely aligns with sort of the thesis of the Rehearsal season 1 and 2, which is this idea that wanting to perfect social interactions, wanting to be the perfect human being in conversation is a futile exercise. And you see some parallels here, right? These people want a perfect version of the dog they used to have instead of appreciating the dog they currently have in front of them. Even getting past the fact that this dog literally looks like the dog they already had. They have a beautiful puppy in front of them, but it's not perfect for them. It's not the perfect interaction they're having with their dog. And it's like, how can a poor little dog live up to these expectations? But I think what's beautiful is, even though that is a dark lens to apply to wanting to clone a dog, simultaneously you have empathy for this couple. They clearly just adored this initial dog, this initial creature they had, and you feel really quite bad for them. It's simultaneously you're sitting there being like, what a weird, fucked up, strange thing to do. But at the same time, they're so earnest with their intentions, you know? And you find out that the wife in this couple, like, I don't think they ever had kids, and she really wanted to have kids, and there was like a core tension in this relationship. So it's like, if she's kind of desperate to have her dog be that child, like, you kind of seen that being like, is this ethical? What do we do here? But of course, Nathan Fielder applies the rehearsal logic to this dog. So he proposes the idea of what happens if we recreate the exact layout of your apartment, of your house. We get actors to play you. We basically recreate down to a uncanny level, right? He literally transports oxygen from where they used to live to where they currently live now, and goes, what happens if we raise this dog? What happens if we raise this dog in conditions as close as possible to those initial conditions? You know, recreate the conditions as close as we can with actors that were your age at the time, recreate similar arguments, everything. Let's see if the dog will pick up on basically the same behavioral cues of your initial dog. And you know what? Like, the show is reveling in how stupid and ridiculous this is. It's clear from the jump that this probably isn't going to work. And at the end of the day, like, these people should just be happy with these 3 beautiful dogs they have. But something really interesting happens. And I'm going to be honest, I'm rejecting the show's jokey thesis here. I don't even think the show takes it that seriously, but there's this moment where it lays out that one thing that their initial dog used to do was walk along this part of the couch, this part behind. And the reason they thought the dog did that was because it was raised with these cats they also had, and the cat used to do that. Now, side note, I have a French bulldog, and it does this all the time, but regardless, clearly they thought that that was a unique behavior to their initial dog that was formed because of it being raised around their cats. And there's this moment where eventually the dog does that, all right? This new dog, this new clone, gets up here and walks across like a cat. And Nathan shows them this footage and they start tearing up. They start thanking Nathan for what he's achieved here. And I found this moment really beautiful and interesting because I think most people at home just go, okay, a dog did something that a lot of small dogs, a lot of toy dogs do actually eventually end up doing. At least me, who owns a French bulldog, I went, yeah, my dog does that all the time. Also, on top of that, it's not that insane that if you pair a dog with a cat that always does that, the dog will do that. But it almost doesn't matter because these people are tearing up. They're genuinely ecstatic and they're like, this is what we've been missing. This is what we always want with this dog. It's like seeing our dog again. They're brought to tears and it's this powerful moment for them because it feels like they gain a second chance with their dog just in this moment. At the end of the day, they probably get their dog back and after a couple of weeks, it's acting as per usual. Like, do you get what I mean? But it's just this interesting moment where he's created this environment where they're looking through their phone and it looks like they're seeing new unarchived footage of their old dog. And it's like, it's this moment again with the rehearsal where you're like, even if this is all fake, even if this doesn't really land, even if it's an entirely constructed situation that was just a matter of time before the dog did that, for them, the experiment has worked. You know, they're moved. It's accomplished what they want. They thank Nathan for his work, which I think is an interesting contrast to season 1 Angela. So for those of you who don't know, in season 1, a character named Angela comes into the picture and Nathan offers her the experience of rehearsing to be a mother. She wants to be a mother. She doesn't have a child. He essentially goes to great lengths to give her her dream house, give her a child, which is played by multiple baby actors, and then age it up very quickly to a toddler played by multiple toddler actors, and basically give her a run through of what being a mother would be like. And she doesn't take this seriously at all. At first she does, and then she starts kind of like talking to the actors as their actual like acting selves rather than the character they're playing. She doesn't take it seriously. And it was interesting because I found season 1 I love season 1, but I found it a very frustrating watch because even though the show is absurd and has insane comic value, I think an episode like episode 1 with the lie to the trivia group is a great moment where there is actually some value in the rehearsal. And Angela bothered me because yes, a lot of it was silly and over the top and absurd, but I was like, you're actually given something that I think a lot of mothers or a lot of wanting to be mothers would kill for. There are a lot of people that have parental anxiety and would love to know what that's like without fucking up a child. And I actually think it would be a really useful therapy tool for some people. And it just felt like Angela completely wasted HBO's resources, Nathan Fielder's time. And instead the show had to veer in a different direction where it existentially analyzed Nathan Fielder's place in reality TV and in these child actors' lives, which was very interesting. But I've always had a bone to pick with Angela because I just felt like it was a wasted opportunity. And I think at the end of the day, the rehearsal season 1 kind of proved that she doesn't really want to be a mum that much, really, you know, and you're welcome to disagree and be like, well, of course she doesn't want to be a mum to a fake child, but I felt like it was very telling that she really didn't treat it seriously at all. You know, there were beautiful moments where I felt like she was experiencing, you know, like when she had that guy over and he was like, yeah, I can't deal with the baby crying. It's like, okay, we're actually going to sign here, but she clearly didn't want to engage. The reason I bring this up is because in season 2, seeing this couple be completely moved to tears by something that feels ridiculous to us at home is a beautiful, moving moment that kind of proves some level of merit with the rehearsal as a concept itself. But then we get to the Sully biopic, and this is why I've been saying this is one of the most disturbing, uncomfortable shows. So Nathan Fielder goes to great lengths to basically Synecdoche, New York. If you've seen that movie, you know, but basically recreate Sully's life and play Sully. And he starts this by playing Sully as a baby. And there's a visual here that I can't get out of my head because I know what I'm looking at, all right? You are looking at a giant room, an incredibly huge room, all right? And Nathan Fielder is a normal size adult in a baby, but they have made him proportionally a baby compared to this room. Does that make sense? So they built a room that is literally like a fucking massive building. So then Nathan Fielder in his adult body can have the kind of like proportions of a baby. But the issue is he doesn't have the body proportions of a baby, but he does in terms of the scale of size compared to the room. So it creates this visual that is just fucking bizarre. Like, I haven't been able to get it out of my head. And I know it's meant to be a punchline. I know it's meant to be a bit funny. But no, it's uncomfortable and weird. And it's similar to The Curse had this ability to bring up like chronically online talking points and contextualize them in a way that was really uncomfortable. So, for example, I'm not going to spoil the ending of The Curse or anything too big, but if you've seen The Curse, you know. But there's a joke about micropenises throughout the season that even though, as I say, micropenises, you want to laugh, it's the way it's presented is uncomfortable and disturbing and like, what are we doing here? Then later in The Curse, there is a character arc. There is a genuine plot line about Nathan Fielder's character kind of wanting to be a cuck. And that is explored in multiple scenes from the first episode to the end of the season. And even though cuck is a term that's thrown out as kind of being a bit ironic, being a bit funny online, watch it play out here and it explores the toll it has on his intimate partners, this need to kind of want to watch his partner be fucked by someone else rather than himself. And it revels in how uncomfortable that is to put on a person that just wants a normal relationship, to explore with people and to even propose. And the reason I bring this up is there's also this arc in The Curse about Nathan Fielder wanting to be consistently infantilized, kind of having this mummy complex with Emma Stone's character, kind of always leaning into being a baby and being persecuted for it. And the ending of that show very much leans into that as well. And the reason I bring this up is in season 2, in the rehearsal season 2, it really feels like it's this massive moment for Nathan Fielder where he's actually always kind of wanted to be infantilized. He finds social interactions uncomfortable. It feels like you're watching this man with these secret, sick fantasies. Like when you're watching Nathan Fielder dressed up as a baby with a giant mummy statue sucking on titty milk, and he lets go this, oh fuck, that sounds like he's simultaneously struggling but also reveling in the moment. It's fucking weird. It's weird TV. All right? Like, I watch in pretty insane shit with my fiance, all right? I'll be like, yeah, let's turn on Kinds of Kindness. We went and saw We Need to Talk About Kevin on the weekend. I'm thinking of showing her Antichrist this week. I'll watch pretty heavy stuff with her, and there is nothing like Nathan Fielder that unsettles her. You know, she was barely able to get through The Curse. We literally needed to take a break in one episode. Even this, she's like constantly she's like looking at what I'm watching, being like, what is happening? Because yes, it's hysterical. It is funny, but it also feels like you're watching something that just isn't quite right. Especially on mainstream TV. It's like you're watching this guy. There's just this weird, uncomfortable vibe. It's like you chose to do this. You put yourself through this. You didn't need to do this to this level. You know, you did not need to dress up as a baby and get drowned in titty milk by an uncomfortably large mummy statue. But it gets weirder. It gets weirder. What I found weirder was then the dad coming in on stilts. It's equally funny, but it feels like you're in this fucking nightmare combination of like, We Need to Talk About Kevin and Synecdoche, New York, and Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, and what was that other one? I'm thinking of ending things. Like, yeah, very Charlie Kaufman, but just what am I watching in a really horrifying way? And because it's also a reality show, you're like, what the fuck are we doing? And then it gets weirder because then there's this section where he's reading the Sully book. What he's doing is a real life recreation of the Sully autobiography. And then it gets this moment where he finds out that Captain Sully, fed his sister stones as like some mean childish thing. So then he's hanging out with a sister that is an adult, but in this weird, demented, mask in order to line up with the giant family puppets. And going back to that visual, by the way, because that was fucked up. The one with the sister was freaking me out. But going back to that one where Nathan Fielder is a baby, you are literally seeing people Nathan Fielder's size operating this puppet with stilts, but because the room itself is so convincing, it feels like it has to be CGI. It feels like he must have been CGI shrunk down, but you know it's not. You know what you're looking at is real. But it's just such an, like, I can't believe it is real. You know, it's so weird. And he's got this, he shaves off all his hair. Like, I'm kind of mad I watched it. But then the issue is it gets to something so funny. And first off, there is actually a profound revelation here. He talks to a bunch of pilots, as I mentioned before, and finds out that basically all of them do not have an outlet to talk. They don't want to talk when they get home because it doesn't feel right, and they don't want to talk to therapists out of fear that it gets reported back. They don't talk to each other about their own mental health struggles. It's like a huge, huge thing, you know, that they can't talk about their shit. And as a result, when Nathan Fielder is looking to kind of audition people to be on this show, they're consistently opening up to him about, you know, things they want to talk about their mother leaving, about their relationship falling apart, about their narcissistic parents. And it makes for this harrowing montage where, like, these are the people that are flying us in the sky, these poor, poor souls. But regardless, we also just get, frankly, a pretty good Sully biopic, much better than that stupid fucking Clint Eastwood movie. But it results in this kind of conclusion that does feel like a joke, but also interesting, where Nathan Fielder speculates that Sully was listening to Evanescence's Wake Me Up, and that got him through landing the plane. He also asked for input and advice. And yeah, it's an interesting moment, but it's nothing like you've ever seen before. It's fascinating TV. There's also this great character we're introduced with, or this person that Nathan Fielder interviews in episode 2, this pilot who talks about the fact that he has been kicked off every single dating service. So Bumble, Tinder, Hinge, even Seeking Arrangement. He's like a massive walking red flag. He's tried to sign up with his mum's account.
I've been banned from pretty much every dating app known to man. They kick you off.
For what?
They don't give you reasons.
He's basically not allowed. And Nathan Fielder obviously is like, okay, so this guy's weird as fuck and making people uncomfortable. But you're watching someone who doesn't get it. Like, he's like, I don't know why this keeps happening. And then you watch a scene with him and a female co-pilot, and he's the fucking worst. He's uncomfortable as. He also says on television that he is weary of dating trans women because he's been fooled before. Like, just an absolute character. And it makes you wonder how Nathan Fielder finds these people. But I've also read that Nathan Fielder and in general, people that apply to be on reality TV are wannabe actors, so they just go for it. Like, they're strange people that desperately want to be on TV, and they are technically being real. It's just they want to be on TV so bad. So you come across weird people. But I can't stop thinking about this show. We're midway through this season. If it interests you, check it out. If you have enjoyed this video because you watched the show, thank you so much for watching. When this show is done airing, I think we got 6 episodes. I'll do a full season review. So please subscribe, like, and comment if you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching, and have a lovely day.